This is a special presentation of KTVA 11 News. President Obama visits Alaska.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joe Behill. We interrupt programming for a brief moment in history, making history here in Anchorage, Alaska. We are waiting for the president to arrive on Air Force One for the Glacier conference. He will be the first sitting president to visit the Alaska Arctic. And Bonnie Bowman, I heard you just say he's coming in. What's going on then?
Yep. Yeah, hey Joe, we can actually see the plane. It's right on the over the trees, coming in over the runway. I think I'm going to step out of the way and let you guys get a good look at that as the plane comes in. You can see it just clearing the treetops there. And I think our photographer Rick is going to move over and get a good shot of that for you guys. We were expecting Air Force One to come in from Cook Inlet, and here he is flying in towards the mountains. There's a big crowd here. We've got a lot of press gathered to get this historic shot, and we also have a large crowd of spectators. There's military members, there's community members, I've seen tribal members, there's lots of family. Everybody's got their phones out snapping pictures as the plane comes in. You can definitely see now that it's Air Force One. It's got that blue cone at the front, so definitely an exciting moment. The president is preparing to land here in Alaska for his historic visit. Very exciting out here. There's a big sense of excitement out in the crowd as everybody's snapping their pictures. Joe, can you see that okay?
Bonnie, right on time, 1:30 was the scheduled arrival, and they're just right there. They receive. If you're just tuning in, by the way, Air Force One arriving at J-Bear with President Obama on board for the Glacier conference, the first sitting president to visit Alaska's Arctic. Let's check out the landing here.
And you can see the Secret Service there gathered on the runway watching him come in. It's very windy.
Yeah, it was windy today, I noticed. Okay, it looks like they're down. So the global climate change show and tell event officially underway here in Anchorage,
and I don't know if you
Alaska.
heard that, Joe, but there's just a big crowd, a big cheer from the crowd, a big whoop went up as he landed. So everybody's very excited to have the president here in the last frontier. Lots of cheering and clapping going on.
Okay, Bonnie, thanks. So the president once again here for the Glacier conference. Glacier, an acronym for Global Leadership in the Arctic, Cooperation, Innovation, Engagement, and Resilience. Now, so why is he here? Well, he's here to see the impacts of climate change in Alaska firsthand, bringing awareness and, of course, discussing the potential for some solutions as well, not just here in the United States, but globally as well. There will be about 450 people basically attending this conference, dignitaries from 20 countries. So again, not just an event for the United States. This is a global historic event, and it's all happening in Anchorage, Alaska, starting right now with the arrival of the 747 with President Obama. So Emily, you are at the Denali Center. That's where the conference will be held. Tell us what's happening there right now.
So, Joe, the conference started about 9:30 this morning, and Secretary John Kerry addressed the crowd, as well as Mayor Berkowitz and various other local leaders. The governor is on that plane with the president right now, and he just touched down. He flew to Washington, D.C. to fly back with the president. I got a chance to talk to Interior Secretary Sally Jewell for about 15 minutes this afternoon. She told me that the president has been asking to visit Alaska for about 2 years, and she says this is the longest visit that the president will make to any state in his entire time in office. He will spend 3 days on the ground here in Alaska. He'll be flying over some of the obvious impacts, including the small village of Kivalina, which is in the Arctic. So later this week, the president will fly over Kivalina, see the impacts of climate change there. She also talked about the rename of the mountain. It is official. Mount McKinley is now Mount Denali. She told me, the Interior Secretary told me she signed the paperwork on Friday. It is official. And she told me that there is some blowback from the Ohio delegation, who, of course, that's where President McKinley was from. There's some blowback. They're a little upset, but she is committed. She says Alaskans have been asking for this for a long time, and she says that Mount McKinley is now Mount Denali. Joe.
Very good, and a little more information about this name change. The name Denali has been in official use by the state of Alaska since 1975, and National Park Service Director Jonathan Jarvis said, recognizing the long history and discussion about the name of this iconic American mountain, The time has come to restore the traditional Alaska native title Denali for this landmark, which holds great significance to the people of Alaska. Again, that's a quote from the National Park Service Director, Jonathan Jarvis. And again, if you're just tuning in to KTVA 11, this is President Obama landing here in Anchorage, Alaska for the Glacier Conference. Once again, the first sitting president to visit Alaska's Arctic. On the plane with him, Governor Walker. They've had plenty of time to discuss ideas that the governor has about what he hopes for the conference and for Alaska as well. Some of the things he basically wants to make the case to the president that developing the state's fossil fuels can actually alleviate some of the causes and impacts of climate change. As the governor sees it, basically tapping the North Slope's vast natural gas reserves can actually lower the emissions in Alaska and elsewhere while helping provide revenue to develop renewable energy projects and better support relocation efforts for villages threatened by erosion. And of course, Emily, if you're still listening, you've seen those impacts firsthand in Dillingham, where there's beach erosion. Of course, we've talked about that over and over again. We've talked about warming temperatures. Now again, some will say this is just part of the overall climate change throughout the world that's developed over thousands and thousands of years, and this is just a part of the change. Others, of course, argue it's from emissions from fossil fuels, which is really kind of an interesting paradox, because we're talking about climate change, but yet 90% of our state revenue comes from a fossil fuel, which is oil. So at what point do you strike a balance? And do you move away from oil, which we rely on so much here in Alaska, and move toward things like solar and wind, which the president advocates? So it's an interesting paradox. And again, just tuning in, there's Air Force One at JBER. And let's go back to Emily Carlson. Of course, Secretary of State John Kerry spoke this morning. And Emily, what more did he have to say?
Well, Joe, Secretary Kerry said that this conference, he wants to use this conference to show people that climate change is real, it's happening, and that here in Alaska, we are on the front line of climate change. He says this is the, quote, right place to be and discuss this issue. And he said in his address, after listening to Lieutenant Governor Byron Malott and Mayor Jewell of Kotzebue, that he really got a human aspect. He heard from people that are really impacted by climate change, and that's what he wants the president to see. The president, after he touches down at JBER, he will come here to the Denali Center, and at 3:15, he's supposed to have a round table with various Native leaders who can tell him and show him pictures and tell him how they've been impacted. So the Secretary Kerry said that bringing all these global leaders, including the president, is really just the start of something big moving forward. He calls it an ambitious agenda, but a necessary agenda. And he says over the next few hours today, he wants to come away with an agenda on how they can really address climate change and change things here in the Arctic and here in Alaska.
So once again, you're getting a good look at Air Force One, the 747 at JBER, landed precisely 1:33, almost on time there. 1:30 was the estimated touchdown. You can see, looks like the dignitaries and the president will be leaving that plane very shortly here. And again, as we're mentioning, this is a world event. This is not isolated to the United States. We have dignitaries from, again, all over the world here. I'm just going to read a list of some of the folks who are here. Of course, we have Secretary of State John Kerry, who's heading this event, the Glacier Conference. We have Sally Jewell, the Secretary of Interior, and as I read the names, you can see the dignitaries on the ground here getting ready to greet the president. We have, of course, Senator Lisa Murkowski, Dr. John P. Holdren, Director of the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. We have Admiral Robert Papp, U.S. Special Representative for the Arctic, Dr. Catherine Sullivan, Undersecretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere and NOAA Administration. You have Ms. Alice Hill, the Senior Director for Resilience Policy, National Security Council, and I'll just read a list there. You can see Senator Sullivan right there, and Mr. Malott, of course, ready to greet the president. Folks from Canada, China, Denmark, Finland, the French Republic, Germany, Iceland, India, Italy, Japan, Korea, the Netherlands, Norway, of course, the United States, Singapore, Spain, Sweden, the United Kingdom. So many people here to again address what the state of Alaska has seen for years and years. Again, we're talking about warming temperatures, melting sea ice, melting glaciers, erosion. Emily Carlson showing us beach erosion in Dillingham, moving back 20 feet onto the shore. The relocation of villages. I mean, imagine that where you live, that you have to get up and move because of climate change. I mean, think about that for a minute. But that's very real, of course, for folks here in Alaska. Now, according to an executive summary of the Alaska Baseline Erosion Assessment Report, well, the U.S. Geological Survey found that the remote northern Alaska coast has some of the highest shoreline erosion rates in the world. Again, in the world, threatening native villages, threatening ecosystems. They say threatening defense-related infrastructure, large tracts of native Alaskan, state, and federally managed land. And again, once again, just tuning in, it's a live look at Air Force One at J-Bear as the president arrives here for the Glacier Conference. And Emily, again, Carlson at the Denali Center for all of this, Emily.
Well, Joe, as I said before, the president is going to be coming here at 3:15 and talking with Native leaders. Then he's going to address at 5 o'clock the entire conference, all the people that are here to talk about global warming, climate change, what's going on. Here at the conference at 9:30, and there's a breakout session, everything from how fisheries are impacted to how villages are impacted, and some of the issues that come up when you talk about climate change. When I was in Kotzebue, I talked to a subsistence hunter, and he told me he's seen warmer oceans, he's seen less ice out there, so that impacts hunting. Seal hunting, he said usually they have a 2-week window where they can go out and hunt seals. He told me this spring they only had 3 days, and they're worried. They say we're right here. Some of the people that live in villages right on the coast say that in 10, 20 years they've seen 20 feet of erosion. They've seen warmer temperatures. They've seen less seals coming in. They've seen more polar bears coming in because they don't have sea ice to float on. So they've come in Taktovik. They've been coming in on the shores, and villagers up there saying they've seen more polar bears. So how do you address these problems? Secretary Kerry said today they will build a roadmap on how to get out of this situation, whether it's less emissions. President Obama last month calling for states to lower the amount of emissions that they have. Is that a way out? They want to come up with a roadmap, basically, on how to get out of here. So world leaders from all across the Arctic, and of course, I don't think we mentioned this yet, United States.
Emily, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we're seeing Governor Walker now and President Obama step off the plane. Sorry to interrupt you there. Okay, so we can see President Obama and Governor Walker stepping off Air Force One, being greeted by dignitaries. Once again, a historic time for Alaska because this is the first sitting president to visit Alaska's Arctic. And I don't know if we can talk to Bonnie Bowman about what she's seen out there, but again, there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to see. The president wants to learn. He expects to learn a lot from this trip, and he will see a lot. You can see him talking to Senator Sullivan and Lieutenant Governor Malott right there, addressing the president, and Governor Bill Walker, again, who accompanied the president. A little hug there for the two leaders of our state. And the president looks like having some good conversation right there. Again, the governor wanting to thank the president also for his leadership in permitting Shell's exploratory drilling activities. Of course, not everyone is in favor of that in the Chukchi Sea. Walker said on Friday that he hopes to push for swift permitting of Alaska's massive liquefied natural gas project and actually advocate against cutting troop levels in the state, given Russia's recent buildup of its Arctic militaries. There are some who believe that we're the first line of defense here in Alaska, and we should actually go the opposite way and build up troops rather than cut them. So that's another thing that the governor hopes to bend the ear of the president on as well. And it looks like, again, addressing more dignitaries here. You can see the limo getting ready to whisk the two away. And so again, a little bit of the trip. The governor will be heading, or I should say the president will be heading to Seward. He'll be spending time in the Kenai Fjords National Park, hiking around Exit Glacier, which is retreating as well as far as climate change goes, and he'll view the park from a U.S. Coast Guard cutter. Again, if you're just tuning in, the President and Governor Walker now here in Anchorage, Alaska, landing in Air Force One at J-Bear. Also, the President will travel to Dillingham to speak with residents and people in the fishing industry about how climate change is affecting them. And then, of course, he will be the biggest speaker at the Denali Center for the Glacier Conference. And you can see Mayor Ethan Berkowitz right there, First Lady Donna Walker as well in the line of dignitaries there. So the mayor hoping to discuss some of this with the president, and a little hug right there. So a cordial greeting for the First Lady Donna Walker, now saying that she has hugged the President of the United States. And of course, a lot of people excited to see the President, maybe get a chance to talk to him if they can, maybe see him out grabbing a sandwich. He's been known to sit down and have a beer in restaurants. You can hear people cheering there, of course, too, as well. Again, there will be protests, that's expected. Those folks wanting to also get the attention of the President, now walking in front of the limo right there. And let's see where he's going next. You can see the Secret Service surrounding him. Landing about 1:33 at J-Bear, pretty much right on time, getting things going. Let's see what he's doing. Looks like he's meeting some more people right over there.
Joe, I'm not sure if you can hear me. This is Bonnie Bowman on J-Bear, but he's actually greeting. Yeah, hey Joe, he's actually greeting. We've got a lot of service members that were brought out here to speak with the President and to shake his hand. A lot of J-Bear service members are out here, so he is greeting them and shaking their hands. There's also local community leaders, local Native leaders, various families. I recognize a lot of familiar faces out there, so a lot of people just brought in to greet the President, make him welcome here on the last frontier, and he's shaking hands and got lots of big smiles. It seems like he's happy to be here. So nice to see him paying tribute to our service members that are stationed here at J-Bear.
What's your take out there, Bonnie? I don't know how many people you've talked to and where exactly you are, but what's the mood out there and seeing the President of the United States here in Anchorage, Alaska?
The mood seems very excited. We've had a lot of cheers. We heard the cheers when he landed, and then cheers when he stepped out of the plane, and then more cheers when he got down from the plane. So people seem very, very excited that he's here. There's a lot of people smiling. They got their phones out, taking a lot of pictures. We are relegated to the media platform, so I can't get too much closer, but I can just see a lot of happy faces, and it seems like the President's having some good conversations with some of our local service members and the families that are gathered to welcome him. Yeah, it's very windy though, so a lot of people kind of bundled up, and I think the President's probably a little bit chilly in his suit, to be honest.
Also, they have some nice weather, a little windy, but it's sunny out, so he'll get a good look today. It's tough to see the President. As he said, he looks like he's talking to some people on the left side of the screen. What is on the left side? Are there a lot of people that you can see, or what exactly is on that side that's a little tough to see right now?
Yeah, I know. So we're on a media platform where we were set up to capture the plane coming in, and then immediately to our left there is an area of people who were brought in. I'd say there's probably 150 people inside a gated area, and like I said, it's local service members, local community members, tribal leaders, various families. We saw Mayor Berkowitz's family is there, and other various community members, but right now the President is speaking to uniformed service members. There's representatives from all the branches here on base, including Guard, Army, and National Guard. I also saw some Coast Guard members, and I believe I saw one of our Marines. So members of all of the armed forces stationed here at J-Bear ready to greet the President. The leaders of the Air Force, Army, and National Guard are also out here. They were part of the receiving line for the President, along with Senator Sullivan and the First Lady and the Mayor and the Lieutenant Governor. So a lot of important community members. Joe, back to you.
Bonnie, do we know any information about how people were selected to be out there?
No, I don't know. No, I would assume that the military members were chosen by rank and accomplishment, and then I've seen various community leaders and tribal leaders, so I imagine people were invited just based on their presence in the community.
And as you headed out this morning, did you see any protesters on the way to the airport or outside the airport outside of J-Bear at all?
Oh, no, not at all. We came on base via the Boniface Gate, and that's all. Once you get on base, it's all very tightly locked down. So no, there wouldn't be any protesters allowed anywhere near where we are now. There's a lot of Secret Service, police, military police, police dogs, you name it, security-wise, it is out here. So it's a very tightly controlled situation. Okay, and of course we can see Lieutenant Governor Byron Malott right there. I'm not sure if he's riding in the I don't know, do you call it the first limousine? I don't know, the Beast? Is that what we call it, the Beast? I'm hearing? I think that's fair.
The first limousine, yeah. I don't know if that's
a big...
Okay, and of course, so the governor had a lot of time. I mean, that's a long flight. I imagine, what is it, about 7-8 hour flight from D.C. to Anchorage? So it's a lot of time to talk to the President of the United States about our state, our problems, our concerns, and solutions, hopefully, about what to do about this. And you know, you kind of wonder what tangible things can the President do while he's here besides listen and get a look. I guess, you know, some might say that's a good start to have the President of the United States, the first sitting President of the United States ever in Alaska's Arctic, to take a look for himself to see what's happening. So that is a start, I guess, and where we build from there, of course, is yet to be seen. And of course, more negotiations regarding climate change in Paris are set for this December. So more, of course, could come out of that as well. And we'll be interested to hear, you know, what the President thinks about all of this, if he has any initial plans to help the Arctic, the people of Alaska, deal with what's going on, deal with the erosion. Okay, so there's the President going into the limo, the Beast, again, as I'm hearing it's called, now on his way to discuss climate change in Alaska, all over. And Emily is on the phone at the Denali Center, and Emily, again, we're watching the President as he's jumping into his limo and getting ready to leave. Your thoughts, what are you hearing down there from folks about the President arriving and maybe what he can or can't do immediately regarding this?
Well, his schedule is shaping up like this. At 3:15, he'll sit down, a roundtable discussion with some Native leaders, people that have seen the effects of climate change firsthand. He'll hear from them about their experiences, and then at 5 o'clock he is set to address the whole Glacier conference. But I've heard from various people in villages. When I went to Dillingham and Kotzebue, they just hope the President talks to, quote, real people, you know, real people that are impacted, that he sees up close firsthand, talks to people that subsistence hunt, subsistence fish. I talked to some elders in Kotzebue who want him to see the eroding shorelines and the warmer waters and look at pictures of them seal hunting, and they want him to understand that this is their lifestyle. They rely on hunting and fishing to survive, and they've seen changes, drastic changes in the past 10, 20 years, and they hope that he doesn't use his visit here to talk on a pulpit to announce sweeping changes. They hope that he just comes and observes and sees how they live and how they're impacted by climate change, and he really takes that into effect. You talked a little bit before, there's kind of two camps, people that say climate change is happening because of emissions, because of the way that people live, and then there's some elders that think that climate change is inevitable, and their ancestors have been talking about this for thousands of years. So they just hope that the President visits and talks with real people in the villages when he visits there.
And Emily, as we continue speaking with you, we're watching live pictures of the President now leaving J-Bear in his limo. The people you talk to, I mean, do they believe that tangible things can be accomplished? What are some of the folks saying that you have talked to? What do they hope he can do? What do they think he can do?
Well, they hope, I talked with a woman in Dillingham, and she lives right on the shore of Dillingham, and she's seen major erosion come right up to her home, and she's terrified that her home will one day fall into the ocean, fall into the bay there, and she would like to see some sort of wall, a protection against erosion. And then there's, I talked to the professor who studies climate change there, and he says that's probably not the best option because climate change is going to continue, and that's not a feasible option. So I think there's people that have various opinions on what they want the president to do. What is the best option? How much is it going to cost? In Costa View, they built a 1 mile wall that cost $36 million to protect from erosion. It was really expensive, Joe.
Okay, Emily, thank you. Once again, for those of you just tuning in, you are looking at a live picture from J-Bear of Air Force One as President Obama has now landed in Anchorage, Alaska. Those of you watching are also watching history in the making. More at 5, 6, and 10.
This has been a KTVA 11 News special report. President Obama visits Alaska.